one big bad boat. The USS Ronald Reagan, an iron fist designed to get a grip on a situation before it gets out of hand. Tactical Officer Lieutenant Kevin Rubel.
Things that we can do, the power projection that we can bring to any shore at any time helps, I think, in a whole, keep the United States a lot safer.
That power projection is possible thanks in large part to the clearly defined roles of the people involved.
Where are we on there?
Captain Jim Simons is the commanding officer of the ship.
Whereas this is a very complex enterprise in total, each part of it needs to be broken down to a very simplistic and very easily followed set of procedures and rules.
One way they simplify procedures on the flight deck is with a color-coded dress code. Here's the laundry list. Yellows handle the direct movement of aircraft. Greens deal with the catapults and arresting wires. Purples fuel the planes. Browns monitor the planes. Blues pull the planes and chain the planes down. Reds handle weapons and ammunition. They also deal with aircraft crashes and fires. And white shirts handle safety-related jobs like inspections. If you're colorblind, forget about getting a job on an aircraft carrier flight deck.
That is sort of the elegance of the whole thing, that we have in each one of those different integrated areas a fairly simple set of guidelines, fairly straightforward, something we can train to simply and that they can follow and repeat it over and over again and make sure we do it safely.
Operating safely on the flight deck is a must, as the USS Ronald Reagan is put to the test to see if it's up to the task of fully fledged military service. Said another way, it's time for flight deck certification. Not many camera crews have had this experience. We're about to observe a critical part of this mega ship's sea preparations. For some of the sailors, like mini boss Thomas Quinn, who've been assigned to the Reagan since it was under construction, flight deck certification is a major milestone.
I'll just be proud of the Air Department and all the work we put in to get flight deck certified. It's just a lot of hard work.
In order to get the flight deck certified, a visiting authority hovers close by, evaluating performances.
We have a handling team from our bosses out at Naval Air Forces Pacific in San Diego.
This handling team, known as AirPac, represents the Pacific Fleet, where the Reagan will be in service. According to Aircraft Launch and Recovery Officer Lieutenant Commander Joe Stodd, it's an exciting yet nerve-wracking experience.
They're watching the Air Department perform both procedures and our safety concerns. And once they're satisfied that we're doing things right, they'll give us the go to launch and recover aircraft.
For Air Boss William T. Cooney, who oversees flight operations, this is a big day.
Once we're certified, that means we're cleared to operate on the carrier normally in any type of environment.
To obtain flight deck certification, the Reagan's crew members must respond to some worst-case scenarios.
The flight deck crew is pretty pumped up, ready to go, and hopefully our drills will go smooth.
The first scenario, an arresting cable is down and must be swapped out.
Here goes, let's change to one line, change to one line.
We'll be switching out a cross-deck pendant. If the arresting gear engine or the wire were to fail in any way, we'd have to remove that from the flight deck so the aircraft can continue to land. So our ABEs, our aviation bosun's mates, are timed on how quickly they can go out and remove one of the cross-deck pendants and replace it with a good one.
A minute 46 adds up to one successful drill down.
The next drill is the barricade drill.
The barricade is essentially a giant net designed to catch planes in emergency landing situations. If in trouble, it's pretty much the pilot's only hope of saving his plane. Crews attach the net to giant hydraulic arms that serve as uprights for the barricade.
We have to get it done in a certain amount of time, and the barricade has to be rigged properly and at the right height.
With a successful time of 3 minutes and 44 seconds, the barricade drill is checked off the list. Next up, initiating a fire drill.
We'll simulate that aircraft landed with a problem and then caught on fire. And then our flight deck crew will approach that aircraft, get the fire hoses out, and simulate that we're fighting a fire.
Because the potential for catastrophe is so high on a carrier, the Reagan is outfitted with enormous firefighting potential. Here, the flight deck washdown system is being tried out. This is where the entire 2-hectare surface is doused with about 80,000 litres of water per minute. The Reagan's flight deck is also peppered with strategically placed AFFF stations. AFFF stands for aqueous film forming foam, which effectively smothers Class A and B fires. The washdown system in combination with the AFFF makes for efficient and effective firefighting.
The carrier's cut up into 20 zones, so you see where the fire is, you know what zone that's in. You push a button and then you hit fire, and the AFFF will come up from the flight deck and put the fire out.
The crews appear to be working through the scenarios with proficient skill. Stern nods of approval from AirPac are encouraging, but what happens up here is not the only thing that matters when ensuring that this carrier is fit for service. This deck is a major tool in big picture military tactics. Below decks, in combat engineering, the elements of that big picture are gathered. In simple terms, combat engineering serves as the eyes of the ship. They have a direct line to the data that comes in via the radar, radio, and satellite antennae.
We're the ones that are looking out 5, 10, 20, 200, 500 miles in between, trying to safely navigate, look for surface threats on the surface or below the surface, and look at the air way out 2, 3, 4, 500 miles.
Back up on the flight deck, as certification drills wrap up with another victory in the fire drill scenario, the AirPac Authority has determined that the crew of the Reagan has made the grade. The flight deck is ready to do what it was built to do. The crew members are poised to put their skills to the ultimate test. Pilots stand ready to put their faith in the Reagan's catapults and arresting cables. And the USS Ronald Reagan is one step closer to being a fully fledged in-service aircraft carrier for the United States Navy. The USS Ronald Reagan stands at the pinnacle of supercarrier technology. It was built with the idea that it will be in service for 50 years. That means that if you're just now graduating high school, this thing could still be in active duty when you're retired. Before we get into what makes the Reagan unique, let's take a look at the typical anatomy of an aircraft carrier. The island is the tower above the deck where they steer the ship, control the air traffic, and monitor flight deck activity. The island also houses radar and communications equipment. The flight deck is obviously where planes take off and land. Below decks, the hangar bay is the parking area for aircraft that are not in use. Living quarters, dining areas, propulsion systems, power plants, everything it takes to maintain this floating airstrip is dispersed throughout the lower decks. As the US Navy's newest aircraft carrier, the Reagan is a shining example of mega shipbuilding, and you don't erect a structure of this magnitude overnight.
It was a gigantic engineering feat to build this ship and all the others like it.
Construction of the Reagan began at Northrop Grumman Newport News in Virginia. A shipyard is basically grown-ups playing with grown-up-sized building blocks. Massive sections of the ship are prefabricated, then huge cranes lower them into a dry dock where